This was local Bracebridge resident Leah Kane and her co-workers and friends that recently took the Ice Bucket Challenge for ALS in memory of her dad, who recently passed away with a long battle of the disease.
You know what, our family was one of the very fortunate ones where we were able to have my dad with us for almost 15 years living with ALS. And it came out very slowly where he started to just sort of lose the ability to use one of his arms as well. So of course his golf game was off, and that was such a tragedy. But I mean, in hindsight, at the moment, it was something difficult. And every time we went through every change in his health, it was a huge adjustment. My mom always talked about how his health would go along and he'd be used to how things were going then, and then he would plateau and be really calm, and we would get used to, okay, well, you know what, he needs an extra hand here, an extra hand there, and it would then he would drop again, his health would drop, and we'd have to be dealing with new issues.
Leah tells us with all the hype around the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, she feels more people around the world are getting educated about the disease.
Whereas 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, you could have stopped anybody on the street and they wouldn't have known what ALS. They may have heard of it, but what? Well, was it Lou Gehrig's? It was just sort of those unknown things. And while it was a big phenomenon this summer for sure to be able to do these ice bucket challenges and whatnot, and it was great to see a community, not just our small community here participate, which a lot of people did, but the world community coming together and becoming more aware and bring awareness to a disease that is actually touching a lot of people.
Fond memories of her dad is all she has left, and even though he's no longer with their family, she is thankful for the years they got to spend together and all the things he's taught her.
With it being with 15 years of living with ALS, he was able to walk my sister and I down the aisle. He saw all of his grandchildren be born. So it's a blessing really that we were able to, because so many people only get a couple of years once they're diagnosed. I feel like on the outside he was a strong man. Like, he wasn't lovey-dovey, cuddly, fuzzy bear type of personality. He wasn't an emotional person, so not a whole lot of I love yous or things like that. But when he did say love ya, hun, you knew that meant everything for him, because it was uncomfortable for him to say, but he wanted to make sure we knew how much he cared.
Leah explains that her family has faced many challenges dealing with her dad's disease and says it's very mentally draining, especially for her mother, who was his primary caregiver.
Like, my parents are young. They're in their early 60s. And my mom, retired from her career and spent the last year and a half caring for him hands-on 100% of the time, as many would do for their partner and their spouse. But that said, as a daughter, you could see his decline, but you could also see hers, because it's exhausting. It's exhausting physically, it's exhausting emotionally and mentally. So to see, there was always that underlying fear that we knew we were going to lose one parent, and you couldn't survive losing both.
Many across the world took part in the Ice Bucket Challenge to raise funds for the research of those living with ALS. Leah is proud to say that the Remax North Country Realty raised $1,000 to help the fight against this horrible disease. In Bracebridge, I'm Samantha Johnson for TV Coach News.